Oh, you found the other ones?
Is there anything? You can try. Now I no new condition. You're right, you're right.
There's also a whole bunch, yeah, these are the ones.
Okay, yeah, very good.
And that one said no.
We can give you one explanation for them.
There's a lot of noise. Most of it. So I just took the skinny pop. But,
In your light, we see light. 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 Welcome, everybody. So great to have you all. Thank you for that reminder to remind you all to silence your cell phones. Take that opportunity. So if you could please silence your cell phones, put them on airplane mode or silence or vibrate. That would be great. I think it was the ringing. All right. So I'd like to welcome you to our three-part series on Mussar and mindfulness. I'm Rabbi Amy Pessah, for those of you who do not know me. I'm so glad to see lots of familiar faces, and thank you for your name tags. If they're extra in the back, or is there a way to give people name blanks? Great. So if you don't have a name tag, it would be helpful for you to create a name tag. Great.
Is the one that.
A list of. Okay, so if you have been here before, I love the sustainable recycling of the name tags, excellent. And if this is your first time, then please write a name tag for yourself, and hopefully we can add you to the I'm gonna come back again next week pile. So thank you for being here. I'm gonna ask you just to go around the room quickly and to share your experience with studying Mussar. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you just say, I don't even know what Mussar is, but that's good because that's why you're here. I just want to get a sense of how many of you are familiar with the topic and how many are not, and then that will guide me as to how I will proceed. So Patty.
Hi. Yes, I've been in your classes. I'm very fortunate for that. And I understand a little bit, I actually bought a book, I haven't read it yet. But it's a very important part of the Jewish and understanding what.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you, Lauren.
Hi there, I'm Lauren, with the yoga and Mussar, I love meeting, thank you. I remember reading a book, Blessing of Skin Knee, and I think there was some mention of it, but I'm here and ready to learn.
Okay, excellent.
Hi guys, I'm David Wilson, I'm new to the congregation. I've been in Florida for about 2 or 3 months now. I'm
Welcome.
from New Jersey. So I'm a psychotherapist, so I use mindfulness in my practice. The way I like to put it is that if you're living in the past, it could be depressing, and if you're living in the future, it could be anxiety producing. But if you're living in the present moment, you can enjoy yourself.
Yes, beautifully said. Thank you. And Sari.
I'm Sari, and I moved to Florida a year ago, but I belong to my congregation in New Rochelle. But I felt that I needed to expand my Jewish horizons, so I joined here, and we'll see how that is.
Okay, excellent. Liliana. Oh, Susan's
she's not there.
getting a big one.
I'm Liliana. I was introduced to Mussar with the wise aging. And I would like to continue getting a deeper and deeper knowledge.
Great, thank you. Susan.
What are we supposed to say, our name?
No.
Susan.
How much you know about Mussar?
What do I know about Mussar? I don't know, I hope you do, because I can't do.
You don't remember? Okay, all right. Sylvie.
So I was interested in Mussar a long time ago, and I have some books, and I dabbled with it, and I said, I need guidance, so.
Thank you. And I want to extend condolences to you. Sylvie's husband died on Wednesday. Memorial service was Sunday, and so we are holding you in our hearts and supporting you.
I need it.
Thank you for being here. Lauren.
Lauren, I've heard about Mussar, but I don't know that much about it, so I'm eager to find out.
Excellent.
Could we ask everyone to speak louder, because some of us don't hear, and the acoustics are not that good.
Yes.
Assuming you have something really good to say.
Yes.
I'm Bobby, and I don't know much about Mussar.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I was fortunate enough to take wise aging with you, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, and I think we touched on it. But we touched on it, we didn't really get real deep into it, so I'm really interested in hearing more about it.
All right, excellent. Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori, and I also was fortunate to be in Rabbi Amy's wise aging class. But as far as Mussar, I don't know too much about it. I think it touches on the ethical portion, but I don't.
Okay.
I'm anxious to learn.
Great.
I'm Madeline, and I'm here to learn.
All right, perfect.
I'm Maddie. I think I took a class or two on it, but I need a big refresher.
Okay.
I'm Judith Jason. I was a wise aging with Juliana and Miss Maddie, but I do not know very much at all.
All right. Well, it's a good thing you're all here because I promise you'll know more by the time you leave today.
I'm Robin, and I also don't know much, but interesting.
Okay. And our friends on Zoom. Hi, Philip. Do you know much about Mussar? Yeah.
I've a little bit, but not very much.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. This was really helpful for me to get a sense of where people are. I didn't want to repeat too much information if people knew about Mussar, but I guess that's why you're all here. So before we delve into the history of Mussar, I want to tell you what my plan is. So my plan is to talk about the history of Mussar, what it is, how it developed, and then I want to move us into studying what is called a midah, a character trait. So that is the plan. Over our 3 weeks together, we will be looking at 3 different midot. character traits. Singular is midah, which literally means a measure or a unit, but also has the understanding of a character trait. So we'll be looking at 3 different midot. We're gonna start with equanimity today. Thought that was a good place to start since I don't know how everybody is feeling, but equanimity, and I will define what that is if you don't know what it is, so stay tuned. Hey, Joe. Don't know anything about Mussar. Excellent. Okay, everybody's in the right place then. So an invitation, I'm going to invite you, if you are eating, to finish your last bite just for a moment and to plant your feet firmly on the floor. We're going to do a few deep cleansing breaths. So remember, this is a class that is about Mussar and mindfulness. So if you are comfortable uncrossing your legs, if they're crossed, feeling your feet really planted firmly on the floor, spine straight, shoulders relaxed, palms facing upward on your lap. And again, this is for what your body needs or feels. If you're feeling like you want to turn your palms down, that is perfectly fine. And if you're comfortable lowering your gaze or closing your eyes, we're going to take 3 deep breaths only through your nose, if that is available. If not, please use your mouth to breathe. So we'll inhale deeply through our nose, exhaling completely also through our nose for 3 breath cycles. And if your mind starts to wander in this short exercise, bring it back to your breath, keeping your attention focused on your breath. Maybe feeling the temperature of the air as you inhale, noticing if the temperature has changed on your exhale. And if you feel like you want a few more breath cycles, please take them. One final inhale and exhale. When you're ready, wiggling your fingers and your toes, tapping, opening your eyes. Coming back to our space. And just a noticing of how you felt before your few breaths and how you feel now. Could you notice a difference? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, so please know that this is available to you every second of your life. And in those moments when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed and you don't quite know what to do, if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. But at any other place, you could be at home, you could be at work, you could be with a friend, you could be with a child, a grandchild, you could be at the grocery store. And so just knowing that your breath is a way to bring us back to the present moment. Whatever you're doing, following your breath. Another little trick, if the breath doesn't work for you, take 2 fingers, find your pulse. Right, so either on your wrist or your neck, and feel your heartbeat. And then notice what happens when you breathe. Are you able to slow down your heartbeat? So again, this is all just, that's interesting. And it's without judgment. It's not, oh my goodness, what's my heart rate? And it's like, no, we're not going to go down that route. We're just going to say, okay, I'm here. I'm noticing I'm feeling a little anxious, or I'm feeling upset, or I'm feeling overjoyed and elated. And my heart feels like it's going to jump out of my body from joy. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to breathe. So a little bit about mindfulness is being present in the moment. So what is Mussar? Any takers, or should I give you the answer? Please, you want the answer? Okay, I'll give the answer. So the Mussar is a body of literature that helps us develop ethical, spiritual traits and qualities. So this has been around for hundreds of years. Start in the Torah, right? So we are told to love our neighbor as ourselves. How do we go about doing that, right? We can have this idea, love our neighbor as ourselves, but how do we put that into practice? And so through Mussar, through these ethical teachings that are also a form of discipline, we tap into the ability to change if we want to change and to grow, because I would imagine everybody here would agree that sometimes it might not be so easy to make a change, and it takes practice. So Mussar is that system that is set up that allows us to be willing to make the change. So over the centuries, books have been written starting in, say, like the 6th century, 10th century, and 10th century and 11th century. And these books were all about beliefs and ethics and how do we personally improve the kind of human that we are. So we learn from our tradition. Every time I say this, I think of the movie Animal House, that we have Yetzer Hara and Yetzer HaTov, right? These sort of translated evil inclination and good inclination, right? So there's sort of like an angel and a devil on your shoulder. And so we might decide that we want, you know, as a young child, see something in a store, they're told they can't purchase it, but they really, really want it. And so they might just pick up the candy bar, stick it in their bag and walk out. So that would be labeled as, you know, the Yetzer Hara, the evil or bad inclination. The good inclination, you see somebody who needs some help and assistance, and so you are inclined to go help them. So there really is this back and forth dialogue. So I'm going to ask you to think of an example in your own life, but please do not share it. That includes our friends online. Please do these same tasks and questions. So a time in your life where you were stuck between the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. Something that you sort of wanted to do, but you knew it wasn't the right thing to do. And then this Yetzer HaTov took over and you didn't do what you wanted to do. So I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to give you 15 seconds to think of something from your own life where this was in play. So somebody shared something with me that was not very kind. And my initial inclination was, I'm going to respond in a way that's not really kind because they said something that wasn't kind. So I'm going to respond in kind, in an unkind way. Yetzer Hara. Then I went, okay, Amy, is that really going to further your relationship with this person? No. But it's going to make me feel better, but it doesn't really matter because it's not the kind thing to do. I know, but my feelings are really hurt. Okay, they were hurt. And yes, maybe they are in a place of pain right now. Don't say anything. Say something in a way that is kinder. Okay, I'm going to go that path. So I want you each to think of an example, and I'm not going to ask you to share it out loud, but something in your own life. And you might want to respond and say, you know what? I let the Yetzer Hara win. I couldn't contain myself. I couldn't sort of get in touch with that more positive inclination. The words flew out of my mouth and I feel really bad. Maybe you apologized, maybe you didn't. So just take about 15 seconds and think about a time in your life where you had this discussion between, right, like the good guy and the bad guy, or the good gal and the bad gal. Take that time to think. I'm not going to ask you to share. I just want you to be able to find a place in your life so you can see where this is relevant. Everybody have their example? Okay, great. So just tuck it away without judgment. This is really just like, okay, I'm just noticing. I'm noticing what happened. So the goal of Mussar is to put us more on the path where we can get in touch with that more positive behavior, that more positive inclination. There's a really beautiful quote by one Mussar teacher from the 19th century, and he said the following. He said, Mussar is teaching the heart what the mind already understands. Teaching the heart what the mind already understands, right? So my mind could understand it really isn't a nice thing to say, but how do I get my heart in alignment with what my mind knows is the right thing to do? So having explained a little bit about the Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination, and the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, I do want to share that the Yetzer Hara sometimes gets a bad rap. People say, no, evil inclination, we don't want that. However, in the Talmud, we learn that it is only through the Yetzer Hara that people build houses and cities and make babies. So it's not such a bad thing all the time. It just needs to be kept in check. And it's really a way for us to notice how we are acting in the world. And so Mussar sets up this path for us. So as I mentioned, for many centuries, this was more individual work. In the 19th century, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Israel Salanter, and he felt that this needed to be shared in a more communal expression. So there were a lot of what they call yeshiva bachers, or students, young men who were studying in yeshiva, in the house of study. And they were excellent in terms of their knowledge of Talmud and of law and the midrash, the legends and the lore, but they didn't necessarily, let's just say they weren't always mensches. Like they didn't always make the right choices. And so Rabbi Israel Salanter wanted there to be some structure that was integrated into the more legal study. So it was a way to also share what was going on in their social, emotional life. And so in the 19th century, through this Mussar program, usually we study 13 different midot, 13 different character traits, and they range from things like order and alacrity or zeal, like enthusiasm and anger and gratitude and equanimity and patience. So there's a whole list, which we will go over next week. And because it is in good Jewish fashion, there is no one list that everybody agrees on. So we have various rabbis who have different lists, but there is overlap. And so through this process of Mussar, once you decide you want to be part of a Mussar group, because this is a process that's done in community. Yes.
What does the word actually mean?
Mussar, it means ethics.
Ethics.
Yeah, Mussar, yeah. But it also means discipline, and it's used different ways in different places in the Bible. So it's not just like a monolithic understanding. The best translation is, I'd say best. The most frequent is ethics, but there is a part that relates to instruction and a part that relates to discipline. It's sort of like the word shalom, right? Hello, goodbye, and peace. So Mussar has different scales and nuances.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what was I saying? Group practice, right? So Mussar is practiced in a group setting. And so usually you start with 13 traits and you work for 13 weeks and you meet with a group of people, right? You're like your fans or your support system. And let's say you're studying equanimity, since that's what we're going to be looking at today. Equanimity means that you don't let things fluster you for the bad or for the good. You're just sort of surfing through life in a way that you can feel the waves on your surfboard, but you don't let them take you down. We'll look at that in a moment, okay, but I want to explain the larger system. So with Mussar, there are 3 parts. The first part is studying or learning different texts. That's what we're going to do today. There's another part of chanting, So they're chants. I guess you could say mantras, but usually in Hebrew or with a Jewish twist. So there's chanting that is done. There's also journaling, and the journaling is done in the evening based on how you were behaving or responding during the day. So here's an example. Let's say I am working on seder, which is order. That's what I'm gonna have as my intention. So for a week, I am going to be learning these texts that talk about order. And in my own life, I say, you know what? I think I want to get the drawers in my kitchen straightened. That junk drawer that everything gets thrown into, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna have that in my mind, and then the day goes by, and guess what? My drawer doesn't get straightened, or I don't even look at it, I'm too busy. So at night, I'm gonna write in my journal, my intention was great, and I meant to do my kitchen drawer, and it didn't work. So that becomes your nightly process. Perhaps during the day, you notice that you go to, I don't know, TJ Maxx, because you need to pick up a new suit for work, and the things are out of order on the rack. And for some reason, it's really driving you crazy, because the larges are in the extra larges and the smalls, and so you say, you know what, I'm gonna try to make a little bit of order here. So doesn't have to be specifically what your goal was, but again, just noticing where order comes up in your life. And if you can't get anything done, you're gonna have some sort of chant or a mantra or a tune, so that you're gonna say to yourself, and I'm making this up, I love order, I'm working on order, I love order, I'm working on order. Whatever you need to say to yourself, there are Jewish chants and words that I'm happy to share with you or offer them as a way to work with a specific trait. So that's really the structure of what Mussar is. And it became, I have to ask you to share, because I'm delighted that I did not make enough copies, but I will next time if you tell me you're gonna come back. Any questions up until now? Is it clear what Mussar is? Is it clear what the system is? One more. Okay, well, maybe do we have enough? Maybe they need a few extras. Okay.
But that's orange.
We're gonna have to share, because I don't have enough. Is there anybody whose neighbor does not have one?
Each one of us has.
Okay, so you have enough for here. Okay, great. And I'm gonna put it up on the screen for our friends who are on Zoom. So I'm hoping, and those who don't have their own can also look up on the screen. Okay, so we're all clear with what Mussar is, and all right. So one other important sad piece is all of this Mussar teaching that happened in the 19th century that became more group oriented. With the Holocaust, sadly, many or most of these schools, these Mussar schools, were decimated. People were murdered, killed, and so the Mussar really disappeared for all intents and purposes. And it was only recently, like, 21st century, 20th century, 21st century, where people started to rediscover this world of Mussar. And so there are several people, Rabbi Ira Stone is someone who does this work, Alan Moranis, and there are institutes that have been set up. I know Temple Bethel had a Mussar class with their teens, I believe, a couple years ago. So it is making its way into more progressive liberal communities, and it is being resurrected as well in the Orthodox world. So it disappeared for many decades, and now it is coming back as a system by which we work to improve our traits. One other say that again?
Question.
Yes.
So you say it's more connected with Torah or Talmud? Oh,
Is it more connected with Torah or Talmud? I would say probably both, because Torah, you know, the word Mussar, I believe, is mentioned 51 times in the Torah, in the Tanakh, in the Bible. A lot of it from the book of Proverbs. But then there's a whole book called Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, which is in the Mishnah. So
thank you.
yeah, it overlaps, and it's really been, you know, almost like this cycle throughout time. The one other piece that I would like to share, and then I'm gonna stop talking, I promise, and let you all talk, is the notion that Mussar is very individualized. Each of us have our own spiritual curriculum. So with these 13 different attributes, when I mentioned order, you might have been thinking, oh my gosh, that is so me. I can't get organized. Or you might have been thinking, I am so organized. The last thing I need to become a little less organized because I'm so organized. This is all about where you are in your spiritual life. And Mussar is about, remember Goldilocks, right? Like, you just want to be just right. You don't want to be so organized that, you know, you exhibit traits or you have OCD, and you don't want to be so disorganized that you can never find anything and you're always losing things. So it's really about finding that place in the middle, right? Moderation and finding that middle ground. And so each of you are going to have different curricula, right? Depending on what you are inclined naturally. And it's really not anything to, you know, it's like on your yoga mat, right? You are looking at yourself. You're not looking at everybody else around you. It's really what you need to fine tune in your life. And that will be for each of you to decide on your own. So now, I want to bring us to equanimity. Is there equanimity, which is referred to as menuchat hanefesh. Menucha means rest. Nefesh is your personhood or part of your soul. So how do you have equanimity? How do you have peace in your soul?
And can I ask people to speak loudly and clearly, and maybe you can repeat it?
Sure.
For those of us who don't hear. clearly?
Yes. Menuchat hanefesh. Like this sense of being at peace in your mind. And I felt that it's really crucial for anybody who might look at the news at any point during the day. You could go anywhere. This is not a political commentary and not a political discussion. And anywhere you turn, there's a lot of information that is coming to us, and it is very easy for us to get pushed off our rocker. I can't believe that's happening. Why didn't it, like, that's just globally. And then in your own life, maybe somebody disappoints you. Maybe you didn't get the job that you wanted. Maybe the relationship that you were hoping for didn't work out. Maybe the house that you put didn't get sold. Like, whatever it is, how do you come to that place where you're okay with what has transpired? Yes.
How would you define the term menuchat?
Menuchat, so the word menucha means rest. There's a construct in Hebrew that is called smichut, for anybody who's a grammar geek like me. So it's smichut. It's almost like you make it a compound word. So the word menucha gets a letter change at the end, so it becomes menuchat hanefesh. So ha means the, nefesh is a person or soul. So it's rest of the soul, but it's a specific construct. So you don't say menucha hanefesh. Just noticing it's hard to say. Try to say that, menucha hanefesh. So it's easier if you say menuchat hanefesh. So that's the construct. Make sense? Menucha is rest. Nefesh is the person or the soul, and there's a letter change because of a grammatical reason. Make sense?
But is it synonymous with shalom?
No, but it has a sense of rest. Like Shabbat menucha is rest on Shabbat. Shabbat shalom is more peace on Shabbat, or the root of shalom is wholeness. So it has a little bit of a difference between a wholeness versus a rest. When I was at camp, we had Sha'at Menucha, which was the hour of rest. That's when we had to write letters home to camp. So it really has this component of resting, relaxing. So how do we get our personhood to a place of equanimity? Yes, Lori.
One of them is meditation.
Meditation, yes, definitely. Right, at least for the time that you're in your meditation, hopefully, if your mind doesn't wander too much. Right, but how do we sink into that place of not letting things ruffle our feathers so much?
Drugs.
Yes, there are definitely people who use drugs, and you know what? If it works for you and you are under doctor supervision, then it works for you. I'm being very serious. You know, there's some people who have tried and tried or have a chemical imbalance, and if you need drugs, then medication, I would prefer to call it, but yes, if you need medication, sei gesund, yes.
I use this method, and I've come to it over the years, where I look at where do I want to end up?
Where do I want to what?
Where do I want to end up? Do I want to end up the same place, whether it's resentment or frustration or whatever? Or do I want to come out with feeling serene, happy, and untethered? Because a lot of times feeling the negative is more of a burden. So I'm willing to give up some of that ego stuff to come to the other. It's a really hard exercise to do. It's just hard, but I've come to learn that I want to honor myself this stage of my life. I don't want to carry burdens. I really want to be free. Get the mindset of the 5-year-old. And I have learned to let go. And that's how I do it.
Great, thank you. Learning to let go and thinking about where you want to end up. Right, so I had, as a former teacher, I'm still a teacher, but I was really an educator for many years. And because I didn't have a classroom, my kitchen became my classroom. And so my poor children would have things posted all over the refrigerator and the walls and on their kitchen table. And there was a sign that I put up that says, saying I'm sorry doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong. It just means that I value the relationship more than I value being right.
Prioritizing.
And so that really goes with what you were saying, right? I'm willing to give up some certain things. I'm willing to apologize. I'm willing to say I'm sorry. I'm willing to forgive because it's going to ultimately benefit me and our relationship. So is there someone who'd be willing to read the first text by Rabbi Simcha Zissel Ziv? I'll do it. Somebody said over here. One comment from Stacy on Zoom, living with purpose is a way to find equanimity. Thank you. Thank you.
I did volunteer.
Okay, just if you could breathe loudly, please.
A person who has mastered peace of mind has gained everything. To obtain peace of mind, you need to be at peace with your emotions and desires. Rabbi Simcha, is this one?
Yeah. Right, so how do we get to a place where we are at peace with our emotions and our desires? Even if they're not necessarily what we want to be feeling or what we like to be feeling. Right? Like growing up, I was really jealous of my sister, my younger sister, and it's a really uncomfortable feeling. And as an adult, I've been okay, and it's been tons of work and lots of apologies, and she knows how much I love her, and it's a really uncomfortable feeling. I don't like feeling that emotion of jealousy, and yet when it arises, now I can say to myself, oh, hello there, old friend. I thought we had dealt with you already. I'm noticing that you are appearing, okay? Yeah, and then I can say to myself, so what is this about? Right, like what's really under this? What's going on for you? But being able to acknowledge, instead of going into what's wrong with you, Amy, and you already dealt with this, and why are you feeling this way, and all those sort of negative talk is just like a noticing, okay? I'm noticing how I'm feeling. So equanimity puts us in that place of accepting our emotions and desires, for good or for bad, for better or for worse. So how does that land for you? Are you able to be okay with uncomfortable feelings? To acknowledge them? You don't have to act on them, but just being okay that it's hard being human and emotions arise and desires arise that might not be so desirable. And I'm gonna do something about it, right? I'm not necessarily going to act on it. I'm just gonna go, huh, that's interesting. How can I bring myself back to a place of equanimity? Because as Maddie said, it doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good when we have all those negative emotions swirling throughout our body. So how do we say, okay, I recognize it, but where do I want to end up? Any other?
Yeah, what I do is ask myself, what are my learning moments? And then I say, that's crap. You feel rotten about it. And then I can say, no, what did I learn that will do differently next time or won't do at all? And it's interesting having that conversation with yourself.
Yes. Yeah, but being able to really talk ourselves through what it is that we're feeling. And again, some of you in this room might say, I am such a pro at equanimity. I don't let things bother me. You know, I'm really in a great place. So that's wonderful. Hopefully next week I'll pick another midah, another character trait that you might need a little bit of massaging around. Or you might say, this really speaks to me, and I notice that I fly off the handle, right? Either for positive or for negative. This is, for me, the challenge of equanimity is also about the positive, right? It's not to feel so, like, what's that expression? Too big for our britches, right? We don't want to be so over joyful and just overzealous and over grateful. Like, that's a bit much too. How do we have an even keeled level? Yes, hang on one second. I thought Bobby and then Lauren.
Is this somehow related to things in the Tanakh or the Torah that will help us deal with that? Or is it just a spiritual, psychological thing that you could get reading a psychology book? I mean, is it going to be related to lessons from the Torah?
Yes, that's what the texts are for. So specifically looking at texts and quotes and yes, like how do we deal with the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov, right? So in the world of Chassidut, in the world of Chassidism, I guess is the best way to translate it. When you have an evil thought or an evil inclination, the training and the teaching is to actually try to transform it. Okay. So you're not just looking at the negative, but it's specific techniques to get you to transform. All right, Lauren, and then I do want to make sure we get to these texts because we have a lot more to do. So
equanimity speaks to me. I'm working hard, struggling with a few things. But I think for me, if I have like a quality, and I'm not saying it's jealousy, maybe it's just like something else that's negative. I just remind myself that that's not who I am, like my essence. This is like a condition.
Yes, great. So that actually uses a very specific Jewish technique, right? This notion that we are souls, right? We are neshama, we are souls. And so when life is happening to us, how do we get in touch with our soul so that we don't feel, you know, we get our ego out of the way and our personhood out of the way so that we can tap into, you know, maybe your chant is Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi. The soul that you placed within me is pure. So when I'm feeling, right, the sense of too much, I'm going to go back to these words from the prayer book. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. The soul you placed within me is pure. grounding myself in tradition, grounding myself in Jewish words. I'm not going to go overboard. I'm gonna really stick with this chant. So I wanna look at, I know there were a few more comments, but I'll stay a few minutes after. I wanna make sure we get through at least more of these texts. So another quote from Menachem Mendel Leffin from the book called Cheshbon HaNefesh: rise above the events that are inconsequential, both bad and good, for they are not worth disturbing your equanimity. Right, so how do we rise above these events? Right, again, you can go back to the Torah where we learn, let's pick one, you should love your neighbor as yourself, right? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Maybe that is something that is a specific line from the Torah. How do I dig into, what does it mean to love somebody, to love my neighbor as myself? If there is an event, it's hard, you know, I guess to define when events are consequential or inconsequential, because that would probably reflect differently for each person. But to rise above the events, right? So we learn in the Torah, that you were a stranger in the land of Egypt, and so you need to treat other people a certain way. So again, if you have this inclination that you want to go out and do something, grounding yourself back in Torah teachings and Torah sources can help guide us in a different way so that we make a better choice. Is there someone who is willing to read from Alan Moranis, please?
I just wanted to say one thing. In my study of art, I've learned to train my eye, and one of my teachers used the term discerning. And I think it applies here. It's using that inner eye or whatever insight to discern. And there's another phrase called pick your battles. Discern what is important enough to pick your battles. And then once you decide, you can move on.
Yes, discernment is crucial to the process of Mussar, right? Because it's really looking at your own inner traits and qualities and discerning, is this something that I want to work on? And if so, how am I going to go about doing that? Where am I going to put my energy? And is it worth it? In the moment, being mindful of where you are in the moment, is it worth going down that path? Or am I going to just stick to my mantra and say, okay, Elohai neshama shenatzatavi, the soul that you, my God, have given me is pure. I am a soul. I am a soul. I'm not going to let whatever is happening in this outside world affect me. I'm going to come back to the essence of who I am.
You mentioned the world of Chesed. We're in the world of Chesed, is that accurate?
Did I say chesed?
I believe you did.
Chesed is loving kindness. So I hope we're in a world of loving kindness.
Well, I didn't get the sense of that world in terms of how this Mussar is related.
So through the world of Mussar and through the world of attuning our character traits, we hopefully move into and create a more loving world, a world that is more full of chesed, more loving kindness, by the way we talk to each other, the way we treat each other.
So this effectively is a technique to get there.
Yes.
So the goal essentially is a world of Chesed
Well, the goal,
that you create, that one creates.
yeah,
Themselves.
to be partners. Yes, we are partners with God in creating a world of loving kindness. And we each have a role to play. Okay, I'm not going to take any more comments. I want to get to this source. And then, like I said, I will wait after. So somebody to read the Jewish sources use several terms of the soul trait. Any takers to read that, please?
Which paragraph is on?
Jewish sources use several terms to name the soul trait of undisturbed equanimity.
Okay.
Great.
Jewish sources use several terms to name the sole trait of undisturbed equanimity, the most descriptive of which is Menacha HaNefesh, for the passage.
Menuchat HaNefesh.
Calmness of the soul. The Mussar teachers see the importance of a calm soul, but they don't see that inner state as a final station called peace and tranquility, where the journey ends even as life continues. Instead,
they review equanimity as an inner balance that consists with a world and an experience that accepts turbulence and even turmoil because that's just the way life is.
Just gonna let everybody sit with that for a moment, right? We're not looking to necessarily get to a place where everything is always gonna be peaceful and tranquil. Life is tumultuous. And it happens. And so how do we create circumstances so that we are okay living in that turmoil and turbulence? In the Jewish view, the goal of spiritual life is not to reach an enlightened state in which all the questions and conundrums of life are unknotted with finality, but rather to become much more skilled at the processes of living. This view applies fully to the soul trait of equanimity, which does not spell the end of our struggles, rather an inner quality we can cultivate to equip ourselves to handle the inevitable ups and downs of life.
I'm gonna read my book.
You're gonna read your book, the book that you bought on Mussar?
It was Alan Moore's story.
Yes. Well, good, you'll dust it off, right? So again, this is really the process, once we are reviewing these texts, and then your assignment, if you choose to accept it or want to accept it for equanimity, is to work on this trait for the next week. And to notice where it is in your life, where it isn't in your life, what opportunities you have to be practicing your equanimity, right? Someone's gonna say something and you're gonna get really ticked off, and then you're gonna come back and go, hello, hi, neshama, shenatatabi, the soul that you, my God, have placed in me is pure. I'm gonna let that float down the river, and you're gonna come back and be grounded. And so this is going to be your task for the next week. I will send out, what would be helpful is if somebody is willing to send around a piece of paper, maybe with email addresses, so I can send you all this chant that I would like you to practice. And if that doesn't work, please find your own. There is a second chant I'm going to be sending to you that is called Amen. So sometimes the only thing we can do is just say Amen, right? I can't change it. It is what it is. Amen. I'm going to send that to you, and you all have these sheets to take home, and I will also email you the source sheets for those of you who did not get a copy. So looking at this spectrum of equanimity, right? Remember I was talking about that dial of where you are in your Mussar trait. So here we see equanimity is in the middle on one side. Too much equanimity is oblivious ambivalence, right? If you are always, you're like always fine with everything and it doesn't matter and it's okay and it's all good. Well, too much of that is like, whatever, I don't know, did you become a nihilist? So like, we don't necessarily want to go over there where we just don't care about anything. And if we have too little equanimity, then we get hysterical. I can't believe this happened, and why is this going on? And why did they do that to me? Right? So see where you are, identify yourself. We're all gonna be in different places. And how do we come back to that middle ground? How do we come back to that place of being mindful about what is happening around us? So if we look on, is there someone who would like, so many baseball fans among us? Anybody like baseball?
I love it.
Great. Would you like to read this next quote then?
Sure.
Thanks. This next source by Greg Marcus, another person who's focused on Mussar. Yes, with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth.
Of the deciding game of the 2012 World Series, the hat went to 2 strikers. My brain started racing. One more strike and the Giants are going to win. Wow, that will be their 2nd World Series. There will be another parade. I found myself getting more and more excited. Then I started to get anxious.
What if they lose today? Go on and lose the whole season.
Keep going.
At the time, I was practicing equanimity. Out of the blue, I realized that the more my mind was racing off into the possible future, the less I was paying attention to the game. I made a conscious effort not to go down that road of becoming super excited. I took a deep breath and was able to be calm, remain in the moment. And Sergio Romo, the Giants' relief pitcher, threw a fastball instead of a slider. Struck out Cabrera. I was still super happy and excited. However, I did not have an overlay of super franticness. It was much calmer, and I remember the moment with a richness that I might not have had if I had allowed my adrenaline free rein. The following month, I noticed that things that would have brought me down didn't have that effect on me that I anticipated they would. By limiting my reactions to positive experiences, I strengthened my soul and made it resilient to the downs that came.
Thank you. So here is a real life example of how to practice equanimity, right? And looking for the experiences that I imagine you will encounter over this next week. Hearing something, seeing something, being with a group of people, being on your own, reading something in a book that starts to get you riled up. How do you come back to that place of equanimity? And there are 6 different ways that I put on this sheet. Lori had mentioned meditating, right? The second is really noticing your feelings as an observer. As I shared a few times during our time, like, that's interesting. I'm noticing that's coming up in me. Not gonna judge, I'm just gonna go, okay, that's interesting. Don't go with the worry. Let it float on by. All right, well, can you repeat what you said, David, about your past, present, future?
Right. So, in mindfulness, which is taught through a variety of places like cognitive behavioral therapy, or dialectical behavioral therapy.
Can you speak louder?
Sorry. In terms of therapies, to give like a dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, we might have heard of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. It incorporates something called mindfulness, which is the Jewish version of what we're talking about, the linguistics of it, about what we're talking about now. So if your thoughts are in the past, it could be depressing, right? But if your mind is in the future, whether you get the what ifs, the what coulds, and therefore you're anxious. If you come to where the present moment is, you're not thinking in the past or present, it's a place of enjoyment and a place of sanctity that you could bring to yourself. Think about all the things you enjoy, right? They're all the things that make us mindful. A good meal, good conversation, a movie, a good lecture, sitting with friends, sitting with fellow Jews. It's all stuff in the present moment that we enjoy. So that's where you want to be.
Right, thank you. So don't go with the worry. Let it float on by. Focus on the pause. Some of you who have been in the Wise Aging / Wise Living program, we talk about Viktor Frankl and his teaching of in between a stimulus and a response, there's a pause. There's that opening. And so what Mussar does for us and being mindful is it allows us to be in that pause. So we have a stimulus, our Yetzer HaTov, that sort of evil, bad inclination, or our good inclination lights up from that stimulus. Then there's a response. But in that middle place is what we do through the practice of Mussar and mindfulness, and how we can choose to respond in a way that we feel good about after we respond. Work with a phrase or a chant, and I will send you some of that. So I'm noticing, yes,
I just find this is really good as a generalized practice. But there are things that touch us deep, really, really deep. And I think time is a very good factor in helping us it's like the water, the waves dissipate, allowing that effect to dissipate. You know, I myself was in a big construction project, and it left me very anxious all the time. Was, you know, it just was unsettling. I was displaced. And I find now that it's together, I have to kind of work toward getting that equanimity, and it's being realistic with what is happening.
Yes. Yes, there are times and places and moments where, you know, this is not necessarily going to work, right? Tragedy, trauma, loss. And if we have this as part of our spiritual toolkit on a regular basis, then it might make those moments a little bit easier. Doesn't mean it's gonna go away, it's not gonna solve the problem, but if we're able to really connect to the essence of who we are and ourselves as souls, having a human experience, as opposed to humans having a spiritual experience, then perhaps this is where the world of Mussar, of these ethical teachings, can fit into our lives. So I thank you so much for being here. Thank you for learning with me. We will do this for 2 more weeks. And I want to send you off with a blessing for equilibrium. Please write your email on that sheet going around if you want me to send you the stuff. Great. So this is by John O'Donohue. For equilibrium, a blessing. Like the joy of the sea coming home to shore, may the relief of laughter rinse through your soul. As the wind loves to call things to dance, may your gravity be lightened by grace. Like the dignity of the moonlight restoring the earth, may your thoughts incline with reverence and respect. As water takes whatever shape it is in, so free may you be about who you become. As silence smiles on the other side of what's said, may your sense of irony bring perspective. As time remains free of all that it frames, may your mind stay clear of all that it names. May your prayer of listening deepen enough to hear in the depths the laughter of God. May you have a beautiful week filled with equanimity. Next week we will meet back. We'll do a little bit more source work about Mussar, the word, where it came from, and then we'll move into our next trait. Thank you for our friends on Zoom. Any thoughts, questions, comments that you would like to share with us? Thank you, Ron, for tech support. And, okay, stay like, so, Steve, if you want to